Thank you all for checking out Crime Culture. Today, I am going to tell you 3 progressively more disturbing stories, all surrounding bizarre disappearances. We will travel from a small town in Missouri, where a young woman's desperate final phone call marked the last time she was seen alive, to California, where a mother's alleged abduction would unravel into one of the most infamous hoaxes of the decade, and to the vast emptiness of Montana, where a woman seemed to voluntarily step out of her own life entirely and vanish. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, go ahead and fist bump that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. It truly helps my channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you haunting stories just like the one I am promising you today. All right, turn down the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself as we dive into today's story. It's April 4th, 1991, in the small farming town of Clinton, Missouri, a town with just under 10,000 people known for its poultry farming and historical district. This sleepy town is just winding down for the night. The evening air is warm, carrying the faint smell of barbecue smoke that still lingers from the local neighborhood barbecue. 20-year-old Angela Hammond, known to everyone as Angie, is spending her night enjoying the barbecue, surrounded by friends and the man she loves, her fiancé and high school sweetheart, Rob Schaefer. She is 4 months pregnant and glowing with excitement about their future together. She and Rob sit close together at this backyard get-together, enjoying this beautiful spring night as neighbors' voices rise and fall in the background. Kids chase fireflies, and the sound of clinking glasses mixes with the hum of conversation. Angela leans into Rob, teasing him about baby names, her voice light but thoughtful as they imagine their future child. For a while, life feels simple, like the world outside their little town doesn't exist. This was typical for Angie and Rob's relationship. The two were star-crossed lovers that were able to laugh carelessly and love fully. As the barbecue winds down, Angela and Rob decide to call it a night. The two would jump in Angie's car and drive together through quiet streets. On the way to Rob's house, the glow of porch lights flickering in the distance. She pulls into Rob's driveway around 10 p.m. They linger for a moment, discussing possibly reconnecting in downtown Clinton later that night. Before Rob steps out of the car, Angie tells him she'll call him in an hour or so, and the two depart. Angie watches as Rob walks inside and shuts the door behind him. Around an hour later, Angie, now in downtown Clinton, parks her car in the lot of a small convenience store and steps out. The street is still, the only sound being the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. She steps into the phone booth, lifting the receiver with one hand as she leans casually against the glass, the cord twisting around her fingers as the line rings. On the other end, Angie hears Rob eagerly answer the phone, excited to learn their plans for the remainder of that night. But in the middle of this conversation, headlights sweep across the parking lot. A green Ford pickup truck pulls in and starts to circle around the small convenience store, tires crunching over the gravel. Angie glances at it, frowning slightly. She tells Rob about the truck, her voice lower now, feeling uneasy as she is the only one in the parking lot at this hour. The truck rolls past once, then again. Inside the booth, Angela shifts nervously. Rob hears the tension in her voice as she describes the driver, a bearded man with glasses, staring at her. Sensing her unease, Rob tries to help her remain calm. Angie starts to relax until she notices this man pull in next to her car, step out, and step into the phone booth adjacent to hers. The man finishes what appears to be a phone call, steps back into his truck, and begins searching around with a flashlight, as if he is looking for something. Thinking the other phone could have possibly been broken, Angie yells at the mystery man, "Hey, do you need to use the phone?" In which he replies, "No, I'll just wait a minute." Satisfied with this response, Angie and Rob continue their conversation. Seconds later, a scream. Angela's scream, piercing through the line. The connection cuts out. Rob doesn't hesitate. He drops the phone and bolts out the door, his car roaring to life as he tears through Clinton's quiet streets. His headlights search desperately. As he approaches the payphone, he hears "Robbie" come from a passing truck, which confirms this is Angie. He slams the gas, heart pounding, closing the distance, but in a cruel twist of fate, his transmission locks up. The car jerks violently, shuddering to a stop. Rob pounds the wheel helplessly as the truck disappears into the night, and with it, Angela is gone. For years, police searched for this suspect using Angie and Rob's description of the truck, a green Ford with a decal in the back window. Though even with this detailed description of the vehicle, the police's search turns up nothing. Just a couple months prior to Angela's disappearance, in January 1991, a woman was working alone in a convenience store about 100 miles from Clinton when she would call her son and report a suspicious man loitering outside. Her son rushed to the store, only to find it empty. This woman would be discovered 2 days later in a nearby riverbank, fatally shot. In February 1991, a woman working at another Missouri convenience store would vanish, never to be seen again. These two separate cases led police to believe Angie could have possibly been a victim of an uncaught serial killer in the area. Angela Hammond's disappearance is one that still haunts the town of Clinton. No trace of her is ever found. And so, what began with something as simple as a late-night phone call becomes one of Clinton's darkest missing person cases. It's November 2nd, 2016 in Redding, California, a city known for its captivating scenery, vibrant community, and for being the second sunniest city in the US, where the sun shines 88% of the time. For 34-year-old mother of two, Sherri Papini, this morning begins like most, with the everyday chaos of family life. Sherri moves briskly through the kitchen, spreading peanut butter on sandwiches, checking backpacks, tying shoelaces, and kissing the tops of her children's heads before walking them to the bus stop. The autumn air is crisp, golden leaves crunching beneath her sneakers as she waves goodbye. Sherri watches as the kids file onto the school bus. She then turns and walks home. Now, with the house quiet, Sherri slips on her running shoes. She pulls her blonde hair into a ponytail, checks her phone, and steps outside. The rural roads near her home are familiar. Long stretches of asphalt framed by trees and farmland. The morning sun warms her shoulders as she jogs, earbuds in, ponytail bouncing in rhythm with her steps. Hours later, Sherri's children are finishing up school for the day. They pack back into the school bus and head home. As the bus rumbles back down the road and approaches the Papini home, Sherri isn't there. It was a custom that Sherri was there to pick up her children after school, and if for any reason she couldn't, she would always have someone there on time to collect them. So, her children wait, scanning for her familiar figure, but she doesn't appear. As Keith, her husband, returns home from work, he steps out of his car and heads towards the door to go inside, but when he opens the door, he's hit with a wall of silence, which is extremely unusual in this household. He notices Sherri and the children are not home, though Sherri's car is still in the driveway. Keith calls around the house for Sherri and the kids, but receives no response. He steps back outside to further investigate. As Keith starts to suspiciously walk down the street, he notices something. Nearby, Sherri's phone lay abandoned, its screen cracked, strands of her hair tangled around it. About a mile away from their house, Keith sprints home to call the police. Once home, Keith gets in touch with police, and the search is immediate. Flyers are stapled to telephone poles, volunteers form search parties, their voices echoing as they call her name into the trees. Helicopters thrum overhead. Keith pleads on television, his voice raw with desperation. For 22 days, there is nothing. No sign of Sherri. And then, on Thanksgiving morning, a motorist spots a figure stumbling on the side of a rural road 150 miles from Redding and calls police. It's Sherri. She is emaciated, bruised, her once long blonde hair hacked short and uneven. Her wrists bear marks of restraints, the word Exodus branded on her shoulder. Wrapped in chains and fear, she tells a harrowing story. She was kidnapped at gunpoint by two masked Hispanic women, stuffed in an SUV, and driven to a remote location where she was held captive until she managed to escape. The country is stunned. Her story spreads everywhere. Whispered in coffee shops, shared on news broadcasts, dissected online. But behind the curtain, investigators grow skeptical. Her story seems inconsistent. Her timeline doesn't quite add up. Police continued to investigate, and after thorough DNA testing, the results would flip Sherri's story upside down. Found on Sherri's body was someone else's DNA, but not DNA belonging to women at all, but to a man. An ex-boyfriend named James Reyes. When confronted, the truth begins to unravel. Sherri's story now changed from an abduction by two Hispanic women to being abducted by her ex-boyfriend, James, though this claim wouldn't change investigators' view of what truly happened. In the eyes of investigators, the truth was obvious. Sherri staged her own abduction and hid out in her ex-boyfriend's apartment while the world searched, trying to escape what she claimed was an emotionally abusive and controlling husband. In 2022, Sherri was charged with mail fraud and making false statements. She pleaded guilty and admitted to orchestrating the hoax. In exchange for her guilty plea, Sherri received a much lighter sentence than what these charges typically carry. It's the morning of April 20th, 1989, in the wide open expanse of Bozeman, Montana, a ranching community with a population of around 50,000 people. 37-year-old ranch hand Patricia Meehan begins her day on the farm where she works. Horses nicker softly as she brushes their coats, her hands moving rhythmically, her voice low and soothing. Yet, beneath her calm exterior lies a restlessness stemming from the ongoing battle Patricia has faced with depression for years. Friends and family sense it, though Patricia tries to keep it smothered inside. That evening, after a day full of backbreaking labor, Patricia slips into her gray Honda Civic. The sun is dipping toward the horizon, painting the prairie sky in vibrant hues. The road stretches endlessly ahead of her, Highway 200 cutting through fields that seem to go on forever. To most, it is just another quiet Montana night, a routine drive home from a mundane workday. But to Patricia, it's something else, a solution. Close to 6 hours after leaving the ranch, 380 miles away in Circle, Montana, Patricia is gripping her steering wheel as she evaluates her plan. She knows she has no reason to be this far from home at this time of night, but to her, this seems like the most logical escape plan. At 8:15 p.m., Patricia quickly yanks her steering wheel, causing her car to veer into the opposite lane. One car swerves just in time, avoiding a head-on collision. The second car, driven by a woman named Carol Heights, doesn't get as lucky and collides directly into Patricia's Honda Civic. Headlights flare, metal bends and crunches like a cheap can, windows explode like a bomb had just detonated. Head-on collision. When the cars come to rest, the air is thick with smoke and dust. Miraculously, no one is seriously injured or killed. Carol, shaken but uninjured, steps out of her vehicle as nearby witnesses who had stopped to assist also emerge. They watch cautiously as Patricia steps out of her Civic. She looks dazed, her blonde hair catching in the glow of headlights. Patricia, also seeming to be unhurt, slowly starts to stroll up to Carol, a blank expression on her face. Without saying a word, Patricia stares at Carol with a look she described as looking right through her. Patricia continues to stay silent, turns around, and starts walking towards a nearby fence line. When she reached the fence, she would stop one final time, turn back to face the wreckage in what seemed like a final moment of observation and acknowledgement, then turn back around, head into the dark field, and disappear into the night. Bystanders watched as Patricia's figure would shrink smaller and smaller as she walked through this endless field until they eventually lost sight of her. Searchers descend. Helicopters chop through the skies. Police were able to pick up shoe prints in a field about 3/4 of a mile away from the crash site, prints that are believed to be Patricia's, but they would quickly disappear. Bloodhounds track her scent into the field before it fades. Patricia is gone. Then, the sightings begin. Over 5,000 sightings have been reported of people seeing Patricia all throughout the country. A waitress in Seattle swears she served her. A rancher in South Dakota insists she worked for him under another name. In Spokane, people believe they've seen her living among the homeless. The sightings are endless, and each sighting feels like a shadow. Glimpses of a woman who may have chosen to vanish, slipping quietly from the life she knew into anonymity. Though Patricia Meehan was never officially declared dead, her disappearance became less a mystery of crime than one of choice. And it all began with something as ordinary as a drive on a spring evening, until a single turn of the wheel sent her on a path no one could follow. Angela Hammond, Sherri Papini, Patricia Meehan, 3 women whose lives shifted in the blink of an eye. Their stories began in ordinary moments, a phone call, a jog, a drive. But in those everyday rhythms, fate carved paths that led to disappearance, deception, and in some ways, escape. All 3 of these stories are almost open-ended, leaving you to decide what truly happened. Was the disappearance of Angela a mere coincidence that she was in the same area of where an apparent serial killer was hunting? Was Sherri's kidnapping truly a hoax? Was Patricia's hit and run a coordinated attempt at disappearing from society? Thank you all for watching. Be sure to comment your thoughts on these strange disappearances. And if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, be sure to subscribe to Crime Culture, where I will be posting a new haunting true story every week. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. Until next week, stay safe and stay curious.